House Chairperson.
Recording in progress.
Good afternoon, honorable members. Let's observe a moment for silent prayer or meditation. Thank you. Please be seated. The secretary will read the order.
Debate on vote number 19, Social Development Appropriation Bill.
To introduce the budget, I recognize the Acting Minister of Social Development.
House Chairperson, Honorable Bridget Masango, and members of the Portfolio Committee on Social Development, Deputy Minister of Social Development, Mr. Kanif Hendricks, distinguished guests, fellow South Africans. Honorable Chair, it is with profound gratitude and a great sense of duty that I stand before this august House as the Acting Minister to table Budget Vote 19 of the Department of Social Development for the 2026-27 financial year. From the outset, I wish to state that I fully recognize the immense responsibility that comes with this role, which I pledge to carry with utmost diligence and integrity. I'm deeply honored by the trust bestowed upon me by His Excellency President Ramaphosa, and I pledge to work with all honorable members to deliver on this portfolio's mandate. Honorable members, the year 2026 is of historic significance. It has been 70 years, a platinum jubilee, since South African women gallantly took the fight against patriarchy and apartheid's apparatus of exploitation to the union buildings. The year 2026 also marks 50 years, that is a golden jubilee, since young people fought and defeated servitude training under Bantu education, disguised as an education system. We're also marking 3 decades since the ushering in of our Constitution as the supreme law of the land. It is the generations of 1956, 1976, and the lawmakers of 1996, of course, standing on our rich heritage of struggle resistance, who paved the way for women to make up 43.5% of this parliament, an increase from 28% representation in 1994, and 43% of the executive, up from only 3 women in 1994. It is them who made it possible for 45% of our 253 judges to be women judges, up from only 2 women in 1994. It is them who gave us the very first woman to occupy the position of Chief Justice and head of the Apex Court. We table Budget Vote 19 on the 20th anniversary of the South African Social Security Agency, SASSA, under the theme Strengthening Social Protection and Celebrating 20 Years of SASSA, Delivering Dignity, Enabling the Future. We pay special tribute to the late former Minister, Dr. Zola Skweyiya, for his foresight and contribution to this milestone. For 2 decades, SASSA has been at the center of our resolve to shield millions from extreme poverty, restore livelihoods, and facilitate pathways out of the cycle of poverty. In their 2023 research report titled Social Grants, Livelihoods, and Poverty Responses of Social Grant Beneficiaries in South Africa, Professor Leila Patel of University of Johannesburg and her colleagues found that our grants have enabled beneficiaries to pursue diverse livelihoods consisting of both formal and informal work, to start and sustain small businesses, and to invest in a child's education or support children in their search for employment. Similarly, both UNICEF and ILO have found that the Department of Social Development interventions have not only reduced poverty, they have improved child nutrition and health, boosted educational outcomes, and advanced human development. Their empirical evidence confirms that our impact on people's lives is not to be underestimated. Honorable Chairperson, our impact has been most visible in the educational journeys and achievements of beneficiaries of Child Support Grant, that is CSG. Of the 729,650 registered learners who wrote matric in 2025, the overwhelming majority, that is 84.2%, were recipients of the CSG. The matric pass rate for the social grant beneficiaries rose by 11 percentage points from 74% in 2021 to 84.9% for the class of 2025. Their bachelor pass rates improved from 33.2% to 41.9% over the same period. Learners receiving the CSG also performed exceptionally well in mainstream subjects such as mathematics and physical science. Indeed, thousands of these learners have gone on to access higher education and training through NSFAS. Those who graduate, get jobs, start businesses, and earn income represent our desired return on investment. We will continue to track the occupational destinations and income earning profiles of these beneficiaries as part of our accounting to this House and to the country at large. Honorable members, we table this budget vote under challenging global and domestic conditions. Geopolitical tensions are worsening the cost of living, including the cost of food, fuel, and other basic necessities. It is in this context that Budget Vote 19 gives practical expression to His Excellency President Ramaphosa's call during SONA 2026 for a nation that works for all, and to the medium-term development plan priorities of inclusive growth and job creation, reducing poverty and the high cost of living, and building a capable and ethical developmental state. Honorable Chair, allow me now to turn my attention and that of the House to the budget allocation as informed by our annual performance plans for the 2026-27 financial year. Honorable members, the department tables a total allocation of 302 billion rand for the 2026-27 financial year, of which 293 billion rand is allocated for monthly direct transfers to children, older persons, and persons with disabilities as part of our social assistance program, which includes an amount of 36.4 billion rand for the continuation of the COVID-19 Social Relief of Distress Grant, an allocation of 300 million rand to SASSA to provide for the increased cost of administration of COVID-19 SRD. An additional amount of 58.4 million rand was added to the transfer to SASSA for costs related to the incentivized early retirement and voluntary exit programs for 134 employees. An additional allocation of 8.9 million rand was added to the department's budget for costs related to the incentivized early retirement and voluntary exit program for 12 employees. We welcome the grant increase announced by the Minister of Finance, while acknowledging that the child support grant remains below the food poverty line. However, the child support grant remains one of the most significant tools to combat child poverty and facilitate transitions to sustainable livelihood. Honorable Chair and members, you will recall that in the previous financial year, the department outlined ambitious plans anchored on SASSA's modernization program and aggressive grant review process. I am encouraged that these efforts are already yielding measurable results. The intensified grants review process has saved the national fiscus over 1 billion rand, which has been redirected to fund other national priorities. As of September 2025, SASSA has successfully rolled out the beneficiary biometric system across all its 432 offices. As at the end of March this year, approximately 1 million new applications were enrolled on this system. SASSA has also expanded the rollout of the queue management system from 113 to 378 SASSA offices. The remaining offices will be completed in the first quarter of this financial year. As the agency expands this digital footprint, we're strengthening cybersecurity to protect beneficiary information and safeguard system integrity. We will also expedite lifestyle audits for SASSA employees, beginning with officials in high-risk areas, including grant administration, finance, ICT, and procurement. Through the district development model, SASSA will continue to intensify integrated community registration outreach program, that is ICROP, and extensive communication strategy. We welcome His Excellency President Ramaphosa's extension of the COVID-19 SRD grant until the end of March 2027 to 8 million working age persons who are unable to support themselves and their families. The department has also made considerable progress since the tabling of the draft basic income support policy to cabinet, including the finalization of the costing models. Work is already underway to link social protection beneficiaries to sustainable livelihood opportunities. The department has partnered with Finmark Trust and are currently piloting a flagship project generating better livelihoods for child support grant recipients in the Free State, Gauteng, and KwaZulu-Natal. We intend to expand this initiative to all other provinces in the current financial year and beyond. Chairperson, an amount of 225 million rand is allocated to National Development Agency to continue the implementation of its turnaround strategy and to fund approximately 800 civil society organizations. Last year, the department committed to developing and supporting the establishment of community-owned enterprises. To date, the NDA has successfully established 9 community-owned enterprises that are creating much-needed job opportunities for young people. To augment its budget and ease its budget pressures, the agency mobilized approximately 40 million rand. The agency will prioritize strengthening internal controls and raising additional funding resources from both public and private sector partners. We have set aside 9.9 million rand to strengthen the work of the Central Drug Authority and ensure that the incoming board has the resources it needs at its disposal to execute its mandate. We would want to appoint the board as soon as possible. We're also strengthening the capacity of the CDA Secretariat to enhance its administrative and operational efficiency. Honorable Chairperson Masango, I read the valid points you advanced in the Sowetan or on the Sowetan regarding CDA. The drug abuse indeed is a crisis. I request that we exchange notes on this one matter, but I agree that we have a crisis when it comes to drug abuse. With regard to NPOs, we'll roll out the integrated digital platform for registration and reporting. This platform will enable real-time tracking of compliance and will strengthen coordination with key institutions such as the South African Revenue Service and the Companies and Intellectual Property Commission. Following the classification of gender-based violence and femicide by the President as a national disaster, we are expanding access to shelters and psychosocial support services. We currently provide financial support to 242 shelters across the country. Out of 52 districts across the country, 47 have shelters, leaving only 5 districts without coverage. Our focus will be on expanding shelters to the remaining 5 districts in this financial year. The Gender-Based Violence Command Center remains a central pillar in our response to GBVF. Since the beginning of this year, the center has received over 39,000 incoming calls. We condemn the recent alleged witchcraft mob justice that claimed the life of a 75-year-old woman and other such incidences in the Eastern Cape. We call on law enforcement to act in a manner that deters these despicable acts of abuse. We call upon all citizens to continue reporting all forms of abuse to the Gender-Based Violence Command Center on 0800 428 428. Honorable Chair, all of us have a responsibility to protect our children. We are strengthening protection measures against child sexual exploitation, including statutory rape. This work forms part of the Child Protection Month program currently underway. We're also prioritizing measures for children's safety online. Against this backdrop, and many other social ills facing our communities, we wish to indicate that the matter of unemployed social workers will receive our full attention. Honorable members, on the policy and legislative front, we will finalize, among others, the following priority matters. The Sexual and Reproductive Justice Strategy for South Africa. We are finalizing consultation on the National Drug Master Plan 2026-2030 at the cluster level. We are finalizing the consultation on the Children's Amendment Bill before approaching NETLAC. We are currently developing regulations to bring the Older Persons Amendment Act into effect. We're also finalizing the National Strategy on Aging for South Africa in line with the UN Decade of Healthy Aging. Following the concurrence of the Minister of Public Service and Administration, the department is now implementing the new organizational structure alongside a robust change management, transformation process, and extensive consultation. We have now embarked on filling all critical posts, including that of the Director General. Chairperson, I wish to conclude by extending my sincere appreciation to the Portfolio Committee Chairperson, Honorable Bridget Masango, and honorable members for their continued guidance. To the Deputy Minister, Honorable Khanif Hendricks, the Acting Director General, Advocate Gugulethu Timane, and the entire DSD team, the CEO of SASSA, Mr. Themba Matlo, and the team of SASSA, the Acting CEO of the NDA, Ms. Ramkhupa, and the NDA team, the CDA team, for their warm welcome and support. Honorable House Chair and members, it is now my singular honor to table Budget Vote 19 of the Department of Social Development before this House and for you to please support. I thank you very much.
Thank you. For party responses to the budget, I firstly recognize the Honorable Sokanyile.
Sihlalo obekekileyo, malungu ahloniphekileyo ale parlamente, mphathiswa wophuhliso loluntu obambeleyo kunye no deputy minister, abasebenzi bonyango lophuhliso loluntu, ikomiti yakwa social development, bemi boMzantsi Afrika. South Africa remains confronted by persistent poverty, unemployment, inequality, and deep social vulnerability. Millions of our people continue to rely on the democratic state, not because they choose dependency, but because the social construct engineered to subjugate and economically exclude Africans from meaningful opportunities for participation in the economy. Namhlanje i-African National Congress iphakama ngokuxhasa ngokupheleleyo ivoti yohlahlulo-lwabiwo-mali lika-26-27 yeSebe loPhuhliso loLuntu kuba ukhuseleko loluntu luhlala lusisona sixhobo esinamandla apho urhulumente wentando yesininzi ubuyisela isidima eluntwini, ukuqhubela phambili nokulingana kunye nokhuseleka abona bantu sibazi uba basengxakini yindlala. This year's budget vote is more vital as we celebrate 20 years of SASSA. SASSA commenced distributing grants to 11 million beneficiaries, and the number of beneficiaries has grown astronomically to approximately 26.5 million. This demonstrates a caring government that prioritizes and protecting the vulnerable. Social grants must never be viewed as a handout, but they are instruments of justice and human dignity. They're a constitutional response to inequality and practical expression of human dignity. Section 27 of the Constitution obliges the state to provide access to social security, including appropriate social assistance for those who are unable to support themselves and their dependents. This understanding is anchored in the values of our liberation movement, as succinctly expressed by President Nelson Mandela, who reminded us that, open quote, overcoming poverty is not a task of charity. It is an act of justice, close quote. Indeed, social grants are not charity. They are justice in action. Honorable members and fellow South Africans, the 25-26 budget vote reaffirmed the importance of strengthening social protection, particularly through the continuation of social relief of distress grant and the expansion of grant administration reforms. The extension of SRD grant not only seeks to cushion the vulnerable, but also serve as a stepping stone to a basic income support. The 2026-27 budget vote builds on this foundation, by deepening the social wage and ensuring that grant beneficiaries are treated with dignity, efficiency, and fairness. The reality is that grants enable survival and participation. A grandmother's pension feeds the entire household. A child support grant keeps children nourished and in school. A disability grant protects the vulnerable citizen from complete destitution. The SRD grant often becomes the only source of hope for unemployed youth searching for work. Honorable Chairperson, we must also acknowledge that while grants provide immediate relief, they also must exist alongside sustainable pathways to economic inclusion. Social grants are not the destination, they are a bridge to a better future. And this is why ANC support stronger linkages between social assistance and economic participation. Beneficiaries, especially the young people receiving the SRD support, must be connected to skills development, entrepreneurship opportunities, labor market interventions, and pathways to productive employment. Grant must empower people to participate in the economy, not remain trapped at its margins. Equally important is improving grant administration. Far too many beneficiaries still experience long queues, payment delays, digital exclusion, and frustrating verification process. This budget vote reiterates the ANC's long-standing firm belief that the poor must not be punished for being poor. It does so through prioritizing improvement in the administration capacity of the South African Social Security Agency, including stronger digital systems, improved fraud prevention, faster appeals process, and better service delivery in rural areas and underserved communities. You can talk about those, for instance, Soweto, Kwanyuswa, Kutsolo, Paplas, etc. Hence, the ANC says the efficiency must never come at the expense of the dignity. Honorable members and fellow South Africans, this budget demonstrates an extraordinary desire to fight corruption as it prioritizes implementation of the basic income. It understands that we cannot be utilizing temporal measures to respond to a crisis of centuries created by colonists and trenched by the apartheid government. The ANC does not merely view this endeavor as a policy matter, but as a moral imperative to lift the vulnerable out of the doldrums of poverty and misery. However, The ANC urges the department to expedite the process of BIG because rescuing millions of South Africans from poverty is an immediate task. This budget vote reaffirms that South Africans cannot defeat poverty while leaving millions without a minimum income floor, and that the democratic state like ours must be bold enough to protect its people. Honorable Chairperson, the Department of Social Development carries one of the most profound responsibilities in our country to ensure that South African is abandoned to hunger, exclusion, hopelessness. Supporting this budget, kwabantu ke abazoti will reject. Kulusizi ke bantu basemzansi, because those people, they are saying in simpler terms, yekanufumana ezi grant thina sizisayo apha. It means supporting people with disability, vulnerable people, unemployed youth and families fighting every day for survival. It means defending dignity. Niyabeva bayangola ndithetha ngokulungiswa kobomi benu. Honorable President, the Honorable President Ramaphosa eloquently put it as building capable and developmental state that prioritizes the poor. I close quote. In line with the president's words, this budget vote and the role of social development is not a secondary function of government, but it is central to nation building and developmental state aspiration.
Speaker.
In landing, Honorable, ANC unwavering
Honorable member,
support the
honorable member, just hold on a moment, just take your seat. Honorable members on the virtual platform, please just don't unmute. I'll request the table staff to be more vigilant in looking for your hands. Honorable Reddy, did you want to be recognized and why?
Thank you very much. I wanted to know if the Honorable Speaker on the podium, if she's prepared to answer whether...
No.
Mr.
Thank you,
Ramaphosa
Honorable
is
Reddy. We
honourable
firstly
after
inquire
the-
whether she's prepared to answer a question. Just stand
Is she
down.
prepared to
Thank you,
answer the
Honorable
question?
Reddy. Please mute the Honorable Reddy while I inquire.
Thank you.
mute that one. Don't
No, Honorable Member, I'm still to inquire from you. Are you prepared to take a question? Honorable Sokanyile, are you prepared to take a question?
I cannot take a question now.
Thank you.
I'm dealing with the most important thing.
Thank you. Please proceed with your speech then. Order, honorable members. Let the member conclude.
Bantu baseMzantsi Afrika, xa sithetha ngokulungisa intlalo zenu, nabo bayangcola nibamamele, ningamoshi ivoti zenu. In line with the president's words, this budget vote and the role of social development is not a secondary function of government, but it is central to nation building and developmental state.
Thank you, honorable
aspiration.
member. Your time has now expired.
Thank you. Uyabona ke
Thank you.
nibamamele, ningabavoteli.
Womandla.
Order. Order, honorable members. The next speaker. Order. Those who want to engage in conversations, there's a tea room next door. Honorable members, the next speaker is the Honorable Mtsweni.
Sihlalo namalunga ahloniphekileyo alendlu, ngiyabingelela. Siwumkhonto wesizwe, asivumelani ne-GNU. Namuhla simi lapha sidingada ngohlelo lonyaka lokusebenza lwevoti lwe-19 lomnyango wezokuthuthukiswa komphakathi. Inhliziyo zethu zibhlungu kakhulu ngoba iqiniso elibhlungu ukuthi umnyango esimeni okuso njengamanje uyahluleka ukusiza abantu abampofu baseningizimu Afrika. Sihlalo cishe ingxenye eningi yabantu bakulelizwe incike ezibonelelweni zikahulumeni ukuze bakwazi ukuphila. Lokho kukodwa kusikhombisa ngokusobala ukuthi ububha buyanda ukunokuba behle. Umbuzo kufanele
Honourable member,
sibuze wona.
Honourable member, just please hold on for a moment. Can the table staff please attend to the translation services? It's not available at the moment. Honourable member, please continue. You're welcome to proceed, honourable member.
Umbuzo okufanele sizibuze wona ukuthi lukhona yini uhlelo lokuqeda ububha, lukhona yini uhlelo lokubuyisela isithunzi kubantu bakithi. Omunye umbuzo okufanele sibuze wona ukuthi likhona yini izwe elinabantu abaningi kangaka abaphila ngezibonelelo. Umnyango uqhuquzela ububha ukunokuba ubuqede. Abantu bakithi bayaqhubeka nokuhlupheka. Kodwa imbiko nezinhlelo zikahulumeni zigcwele amazwi amakhulu angasiguquli isimo alethe ushintsho olubonakalayo emphakathini. Abantu abampofu sebekhathele izethembiso ezingabonakali, bafuna izenzo ezibonakalayo. Sihlalo ukusetshenziswa kwesidakamizwa kuqede imiphakathi yakithi. Isidakamizwa zibulala ikusasa lentsha yethu, imndeni yahlukumezeka, ubugebengu buyanda, nemphakathi siphila ngokwesaba. Kodwa umnyango unalo uhlelo olucacile nolusebenzayo lokuhlenga abantu bakithi kule nkinga isidakamizwa. Le APP ayinazo impendulo. Namuhla njengoba sikhuluma nje uCDA akanawo umkhandlu olawulayo okuyiwo okumele uhole ukulwa nesidakamizwa emphakathini. Uhulumeni angasho kanjani ukuthi uzimisele ukulwa nesidakamizwa kuyilapho uhlaka olubaluleke kangaka lungasebenzi? Izinhlangano zomphakathi, amasonto, ama-NGO kanye nezikhungo zokuhlunyeleliswa kwezimilo bayazama ukusiza abantu bakithi kodwa abathola uxhaso olwanele kulomnyango. Inhlangano eziningi ziyahluleka ngenxa ukuthi azilitholi usizo lwezimali kuhulumeni. Sihlalo ohloniphekileyo, abesifazane bayaqhubeka nokuhlukumezeka nsuku zonke. Udlame olubhekiswe kwabesifazane nezingane seliphenduka inhlekelele kazwelonke. Sihlalo abesifazane nezingane udlame olubhekiswe kubo seluphenduke inhlekelele kazwelonke. Abesifazane nezingane bakhala befuna ukuvikelwa kodwa abalitholi usizo. Uma owesifazane osendaweni yasemakhaya kuqumbu ehlukumezeka phakathi kwamabili kufanele abalekele kuphi umnyango ungekho lapho? Ake sikhulume ngosasi. Njengeqembu lomkhonto wesizwe sifuna ukusho ngokucacile ukuthi izikhungo zokuholela kufanele zibuyiselwe eindaweni zabantu. Umnyango wavala izikhungo zokuholela ngaphandle kokubheka umonakalo omkhulu owadaleka emphakathini nasemnothweni wabantu abansundu. Lezi zikhungo kwangeyikhona nje ukuthola izibonelelo kulezo indawo kodwa kwakuyimpilo nomnotho wabantu abansundu. Ake uhambe minister uyobuka indawo zasemakhaya la okwakuyizikhungo khona sengathi ungayofika kwamhlaba uyalingana entshongo esikhungweni esasikhulu kakhulu uyobabona bafika bebakaza phansi kwezihlahla bengazi ukuthi bazokwenza njani. Izikhungo zokuholela kwakusebenzela kuzo osomabhizinisi abancane abadayisayo abahwebi ababedayisa ngamaklabishi nangeimpahla zokugqoka. Kuyikhungo zokuholela kwakusizakala abantu bezitolo zasemakhaya ezagcina ivaliwe ngenxa yokuvalwa kwezikhungo. Iqiniso olwaziyo minister ukuthi ziningi ifundiswa ezazalwa yilolo hlelo lolo lokudayisa ezikhungweni zokuholela. Udaba lwezikhungo zokuholela lwaphazamisa impumelelo eningi kakhulu. Kwi-APP edlule salikhuluma lolu daba saqhubeka futhi sicela izikhungo zibuyele. Abantu abadala babehamba amabanga amafushane kuye indaweni zokuthola izibonelelo zabo kodwa namhlanje
bahamba amabanga amade kufuneka bagibele ngemali abangenayo benqamula ubusuku bobamba olayini abade babanjwa izigebengu futhi kulezo indawo lezo. Sengathi ningayibukisisa leyo ndaba leyo. Asikwazi ukuqhubeka siphatha abantu abadala ngalendlela leyo. uNkulunkulu uyosahlulela ngalokho ngoba labantu abadala yibo abakhuleke elizwe futhi ibona abalwela lenkululeko lena. Uma sifuna isibusiso kufanele ukuthi sisinake isililo sabantu abadala. Asilalele izwi lokhala kwabo. Sihlalo hloniphekileyo siphinde sikhulume futhi ngo-NDA. u-NDA uthola imali akwazi uholela ngayo abantu abasebenza kuye, angakwazi ukwakha amabhizinisi amancane okwelekelela abantu ukuze kuqedwe ububha nokweswela emphakathini. Imali ayitholayo igcina isizisebenza ukuthi ihole, kodwa ukuthi kwakhiwe amabhizinisi azokwelekelela abantu akwenzeki lokho. Sihlalo angibuye futhi. Njengomkhonto wesizwe sidinga umnyango ovikela abesifazane nezingane. Njengomkhonto wesizwe sidinga umnyango oxhasa ama-NGO nezinhlangano zomphakathi. Njengomkhonto wesizwe sidinga umnyango ohlonipha abantu abadala. Njengomkhonto wesizwe sidinga umnyango ozozwelana nabantu abadala bangaze baphume bawumashe emgwaqweni nezindondolo begugile beyocela ukuthi lizwakale izwi labo. Okube yihlazo elikhulu kakhulu ukuthi uma abantu abadala bekhushulelwa imali banikezwe u-R80. Kulesi simo esibi kangaka esibhekene naso la wonke umuntu ebona ukuthi kusinda kangakanani ukuphila. Siyacela ukuthi nibuye nikubukisise futhi lokho. Ngomhla zizine kuLwezi iSouth Africa izovota kuwo lo nyaka lo. Siyacela ukuthi abantu base South Africa uvoteleni umkhonto wesizwe ukuze uyilethe lezidingo, ulethe umehluko, ukuzwelana nabantu, ukuzwelana nabantu abadala, ukuzwelana nezingane, ukuzwelana nezintandane, ukuzwelana nabantu abaphila nokukhubazeka abahamba amabanga amade beyolanda imali la ehanjiswe khona koNciwankulu. Angithokoze sihlalo.
Thank you. The Honorable Masango.
Honorable House Chairperson, Honorable Acting Minister, Honorable Deputy Minister, Honorable members, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. This debate takes place at a time when several critical issues continue to affect the Department of Social Development. From a policy perspective, it is important to note that during the 6th administration, the department was developing the critically important white paper on social development. Parliament was informed on several occasions that this policy was at an advanced stage of development and had eventually been tabled before Cabinet for approval. However, progress on this work can no longer be clearly tracked, despite the fact that it was understood to form the basis for the development of the broader Social Development Act. The absence of this policy from the department's plans is gravely concerning. The delays in finalizing this policy and its related legislation continue to negatively affect service delivery, accountability, and the optimal functioning of the department itself. Additionally, we remain deeply concerned and disappointed by the manner in which the department is currently managing other critical pieces of legislation. For example, the finalization timelines for the Children's Amendment Bill have been again extended without concrete explanation. This demonstrates a troubling lack of appreciation for the impact this legislation has on the provision of services to South Africans' children. South Africa's children are stunted. Some suffer and die from malnutrition. Others are abandoned, abused, and in some cases lose their lives. This list continues. Yet the Children's Act clearly states that the best interests of the child are paramount in every matter concerning the care, the protection, and well-being of children. Why has the Office of the Rights of the Child not yet been relocated to the presidency to ensure the smooth implementation of the national strategy to accelerate action for children? The Honorable President pronounced on this urgent matter, yet parliamentary questions directed to the department have been met with flippant responses. Chairperson, the lives of children must be more important than that. The commendable work done by the department on the Older Persons Act has unfortunately been undermined by the department's deeply concerning silence on the development of the regulations required to guide its full implementation. Of serious concern in this regard is the department reneging on its commitments to conduct a roadshow of residential care facilities for older persons. We are all aware of gross violations of human rights against our senior citizens. The department must provide clear timelines in this regard. South Africa continues to experience one of the highest rates of gender-based violence in the world. Between April and September 2025, SAPS recorded 24,417 sexual offense cases, 19,387 rapes, and more than 3,400 sexual assaults. Many incidents, of course, go unreported, highlighting the devastating scale of this crisis. This is why the department must return the Victim Support Services Bill to legislative process without further delay. We cannot expect to win the fight against gender-based violence while critical legislation remains stalled. On matters relating to substance abuse, South Africa remains among the hardest affected countries, yet the term of the Central Drug Authority expired in March 2026, effectively leaving the coordination, overseeing, monitoring, and evaluation of government's response to substance abuse at a standstill. The department was fully aware that the board's term was coming to an end, yet no measures were put in place to ensure the timely appointment of a new board. This is worse than business as usual. A mandate of this magnitude cannot be left to chance. There must be a seamless continuity in the coordination of government's response to substance abuse. On matters of accountability, the department has still not honored its undertaking to provide a detailed breakdown of the costs relating to the taxpayers' 3 million rand reportedly spent on a New York trip. In closing, Honorable Chairperson, while acknowledging the progress the department has made, oversight also requires us to confront areas where urgency, accountability, and implementation remain lacking so that corrective action can be taken. Having said that, I wish to take this opportunity to commend both the national, provincial, and local departments of social development, together with all stakeholders in the sector, for the work they continue to do in delivering critical services to the vulnerable people of South Africa. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you. The Honorable Marais.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. I would like to acknowledge my CIC Commander-in-Chiefs, our officials, our commissars, fighters, and ground forces. Today, Minister, I'm rise today to participate in the debate of Budget Vote 19, the budget allocation for the Department of Social Development. At the stage of this debate lies a difficult but unavoidable truth. South Africans remain one of the most unequal societies in the world. Millions of our people continue to live below poverty line. Unemployment remains stubbornly high. Gender-based violence continues to tear families apart. Substance abuse is destroying communities, and vulnerable children and older persons remain dependent on the state for survival. Therefore, social development cannot merely be viewed as another expenditure item into the fiscus. It is a constitutional obligation. It is an instrument of social justice. It is a moral commitment to the poor, the unemployed, the elderly women, children, persons with disabilities, and all those remain excluded from meaningful economic participation. The people of South Africa do not simply expect budgets to be tabled. They expect budgets to translate into dignity, service delivery, accountability, and measurable outcomes. The first concern with this budget is that it continues imbalance between the social relief and substantial economic empowerment. The department continued to allocate the overwhelming majority of its budgets towards social grants and income support. While social grants remain essential in cushioning millions of households against extreme poverty, the reality is that grants alone cannot eradicate poverty permanently. South Africans cannot afford a welfare state without a parallel strategy for economic inclusion. The dependency ratio continues to grow. While economic growth remains weak, more people are becoming dependent on the state, while fewer taxpayers are carrying the fiscal burden. This raises a serious policy question. Where is the long-term strategy to transit vulnerable households from social dependence towards economic self-sufficiency? The expanded public works program, community development initiatives, youth empowerment programs, skills development interventions, support of non-profit organizations remain underscored relative and the scale of the crisis confronting our communities. The second concern relates to administrative inefficiencies and weakness in governance. The Auditor General has repeatedly raised concern regarding weakness in internal controls, poor record keeping, unreliable performance, information, and inadequate subsequent management within the department of some of its entities. Most concerning is that the Department of Social Development received a qualified audit opinion with findings for the 2024-25 financial year. A qualified audit outcomes is not a minor administrative issue. It signals material weakness in financial management and raises concern about whether public resources are being utilized effectively, transparently, and full compliance with the Public Finance Management Act. The Auditor General specifically identified weakness relating to data systems, incomplete supporting documents, and limited system integrated for identifying eligible beneficiaries. This particularly alarmed because the Department Administrative is one of the largest social protection systems on the African continent. When systems are weak, opportunities for fraud, duplication, corruption, irregular expenditure, inevitable increase. The Auditor General also highlighted broader concern regarding non-compliance with legislation, material misstatements in performance report, and persistent governance failure. This House must ask, how can we justify increased allocations when the accountability mechanism remain insufficient? The issue before us is not only where the money is spent. The issue is whether money is spent effectively, lawfully, and in a manner that genuinely improves the lives of our people. Another major shortcoming with about 19 is continuing vulnerability of the social grant payment system. Yes, year after year, beneficiaries complain about delayed payments, long queues, system failures, network outreach, inaccessible service points in the rural communities, and difficult links to post office migration process. For many South Africans, a social grant is not a supplementary income, it's the only income. Any insufficiency within the grant system direct affect food security, household stability, and human dignity. We cannot continue to normalize the situation where elderly beneficiaries stand in queues for hours under harsh weather conditions merely to access constitutionally protected support. The department must also confront the growing crisis in substance abuse, homelessness, child neglect, gender-based violence, and violence with far greater urgency. Community-based organizations and non-profit organizations remain the backbone of the social intervention in many communities. Yes, many continue to experience delay, transfers, inadequate funding, and unsustainable operational conditions. Far too many social workers remain overburdened. Far too many shelters operate without sufficient support from the state. Far too many children fall through the crack of the child protection system. Far too many victims of gender-based violence encounter a fragmented support framework. If social development is truly national priority, then frontline social services must receive greater investment and stronger institutional support. We also acknowledge the broader fiscal content within which the budget is being tabled. South Africa faces...
Thank you, Honorable Marais. Your time is now expired.
The EFF cannot accept this budget. Thank you.
The Honorable Markey.
Thank you so much, Honorable Chairperson. The IFP welcomes budget vote 19 because we see social services not as charity, but as an investment in human dignity and resilience. For millions of South Africans who face hardship, these measures provide immediate relief while laying the groundwork for genuine economic participation. Reliable social services must do more than keep people afloat. They must develop, empower them to stand on their own and contribute meaningfully to the nation's future. While we recognize the department's extensive reach, our support for the allocation is coupled with a firm demand for accountability regarding critical structural failure. We must acknowledge the difficult truth that our current system risks becoming a framework for bureaucratic compliance rather than a collective instrument for genuine human development. At the same time, the exclusion of our most vulnerable children is deeply troubling. In the midst of the national crisis of early childhood, stunting and malnutrition, the South African Social Security Agency erases the targets to reach children under 2 years old from its annual performance plan. We cannot claim to build a healthy, capable future workforce while ignoring our children during the foundation phase, their early development. The IFP demands the immediate reinstatement for these targets. Protecting our children must go beyond mere cash transfers. Officials must deploy it directly to healthcare facilities to streamline early registration and ensure no child is left behind. We must also confront the technological exclusive affection our rural and elderly populations, while fraud-defected systems are necessary and rigid rollout of biometric verification and remote auditing has turned technology into a barrier rather than an enabler. These failures have already caused a significant drop in earlier grants, leaving thousands of frail, rural, and biological illiterate citizens cut off from their only source of survival. Accessible face-to-face alternative and mobile outreach units must be deployed immediately so that no legitimate beneficiary is left behind by the technology divide. We must further address the National Development Agency's internal inefficiencies. It is unacceptable that nearly 87% of its budget is consumed by fixed and employee-related operating costs, leaving only a fraction for delivery and civil society funding. This is not a real development, as almost all of its budget goes to salaries and running costs, while the very little reaches the communities. Our vulnerable communities deserve consistent and effective social services that work for them and not only for the system that is empowered. In light of the issues raised, the IFP supports the budget vote 19. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you. The Honorable Peters.
Thank you, House Chair, Honorable Acting Minister, Honorable Deputy Minister, and Honorable members. The Patriotic Alliance supports interventions that protect the poor, restore dignity to vulnerable communities, and ensure that no South African is left behind. Social development is not a charity, it's a constitutional responsibility and a moral obligation. We welcome the child support grant top-up and the fact that it now exceeds the food poverty line. This is an important intervention for vulnerable children. The Patriotic Alliance also believes that the annual increase of only 80 rand to old age grant is inadequate. Our pensioners are carrying enormous burdens, raising grandchildren, supporting unemployed family members, and trying to survive in an economy where food, electricity, and transport costs continue to rise. Elderly citizens who built this country deserve more than symbolic increases, then fail to meet their daily needs. The delay in finalizing the basic income support policy is deeply concerning. Millions of South Africans rely on the SRD grant as their only form of income, yet there is still uncertainty about what will happen after March 2027. Government cannot continue delaying critical decisions while people are struggling to put food on the table. The Patriotic Alliance supports the principle that social assistance must also create pathways to economic empowerment. Grants should not trap people in poverty. They should serve as a support while beneficiaries are linked to real opportunities through skills development and entrepreneurship, as well as employment programs. However, the current pace is far too slow. Creating just over 209,000 work opportunities through EPWP in a country with almost 8 million unemployed people is simply not enough. South Africa needs sustainable jobs and long-term economic opportunities, not temporary relief that disappears after a few months. Chairperson, we are especially alarmed by the ongoing crisis of gender-based violence and child abuse in our communities. Girls as young as 10 years old continue to fall pregnant and face high risk exploitation, abuse, and HIV infection. Yet the department plans only 4 awareness campaigns and 4 additional GBV shelters. The Patriotic Alliance believes this crisis requires far more urgency and far stronger intervention. The National Development Agency must be strengthened. With nearly 70% of its budget going to salaries, we must ask, how much is truly reaching communities and driving poverty eradication? We also remain concerned about the exclusion of persons with disabilities. Many children with disabilities still cannot access schools, while government facilities, including SASSA offices, remain inaccessible. Inclusion cannot remain a slogan while vulnerable people continue to face daily barriers. The department has been marked by persistent underperformance and weak oversight, and this in the time of the former minister. I want to go to the food aid because my time is almost up, but I just want to say that is pure extortion that the minister's daughter applied to the food aid. And I want to ask, how is that different from the previous times in our lives? How is it different from apartheid? The Patriotic Alliance supports the vote. Thank you.
The Honorable van Staden.
Thank you, House Chairperson. First of all, my welcome to the Acting Minister. I wish you all the best with your task in this department. Chairperson, upon reading the Portfolio Committee's recommendation in this report, one is compelled to question how the department utilized its 295 billion allocation for 25-26 and how it intends to manage the increased budget of 302 billion for 26-27. All 8 recommendations of this committee in this report begin with the phrase, the minister should ensure. However, what stands out most is the 3rd recommendation, which states that the minister should also ensure that the department produces annual reports on a high standard before they are published and submitted to Parliament. It is therefore hardly surprising that the President dismissed the minister last Thursday in light of allegations against her. Equally, it comes as no surprise, Chairperson, but this report repeatedly states that the minister should ensure this or that. The simple truth is that the minister failed to do a job. Why are we still discussing the Central Drug Authority's need for transparent budget allocation, expenditure, and accountability frameworks? Because the minister did not do a job. Why are we still grappling with a lack of frontline staff at SASSA offices and the persistent problem of long queues? Because once again, the minister did not do a job. Plain and simple, yet the minister somehow finds the time to appoint a 55-year-old individual only to misuse her by assigning her to duties at a private residence in East London, and where she was required to care for the minister's grandchildren while also performing domestic work, such as laundry and cleaning. But most troubling of all, the minister allegedly went further, pressuring this woman to pay 7,000 of a 15,000 salary to the minister's daughter. When the minister later appeared before this committee, the same woman, now traumatized and pursuing legal action against this department, was represented by legal counsel who publicly stated that the minister had not given truthful testimony in front of this committee. But instead, we are confronted in this report with a repeated refrain, the minister should ensure. What an awful shame. It is deeply troubling that a minister that was entrusted with the care and protection of society's most vulnerable, particularly the elderly, has so clearly failed to fulfill her duties. Rather than upholding this responsibility, she instead found time to orchestrate the exploitation of a hardworking individual for personal gain. Chairperson, last Friday, we saw what happened, that the president declined to disclose the reasons, findings, or reports that informed his decision to remove this minister to Parliament. That, Chairperson, speaks volumes. The people of South Africa have a right to know exactly what transpired within this department. I therefore call again on the president and on the acting ministers now to talk to the president to once again disclose before Parliament the reasons, findings, or reports that informed his decision to remove the minister from cabinet, the previous minister. Acting Minister, as I said, I wish you well in your task in this department, but I think it's not going to be easy. We're sitting with big problems in this department, and I hope it can be solved by you. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. The Honourable James.
South Africans, billions upon billions of rands flowing through the department every single year. There are pensioners choosing whether they should cook food or whether they should have electricity, fleeing from their homes, surrendering their SASSA cards to their drug-addicted children while waiting for social workers to come to their rescue. Persons with disabilities laying in their urine for days on end. Minister, last week I sent you a WhatsApp, you haven't responded to it. A home in Easterus, old age home where people are being abused. I await your response. And yet, instead of stability, integrity, and competent governance, they are subjected to endless political games, cadre deployment, corruption, and internal warfare. A department tasked with protecting the most vulnerable in society has in itself become an instrument of corruption, patronage, suffering, and decay. Hierdie department kan nie so aangaan nie. Honorable Speaker, South Africans deserve better than this circus. They deserve a department led by people of integrity, not politically connected looters and deployees. Also, Minister, it is not only now that we are left without a central drug authority. This country is experiencing a drug crisis. It has been since 2025 March. The central drug authority was told to stop working because there's no money to actually pay them. It's a disgrace that 2 months into the new term, we still don't have a central drug authority. Please, can you attend to that as a matter of urgency? This people deserves to be led by a department of integrity and not politically connected to looters like we have seen. For these reasons, and because there is simply no confidence in stability, credibility, or leadership of this department, Action SA says it cannot and it will not support this budget. I thank you.
Thank you. The Honourable, the Deputy Minister of Social Development.
Honorable Chairperson, Acting Minister of Social Development, members of the Portfolio Committee, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, honorable members on the virtual platform, and those who honor us with their presence. Sani Bonani. Today we table Budget Vote 19 at a time when millions of South Africans rely on the social wage for dignity, hope, and survival. Hope that this is the foundation for sustainable livelihoods, especially those beneficiaries receiving child support grants and entering the adult world. They want a pathway to a paycheck and even dividends as they get into business. This year, we proudly celebrate 20 years of the South African Social Security Agency. For 2 decades, SASSA has advanced dignity, inclusion, and social justice, becoming a vital pillar of our democracy. Having in its 20th year turned the corner dramatically, and on the radar, 90-minute queues and service while you wait in the queue is something to look forward to. The department is tabling DSD Budget Vote 19 under the theme Strengthening Social Protection and celebrating 20 years of SASSA, delivering dignity, enabling the future. Honorable Chair, allow me now to focus on delegations that were allocated to me by the department's former minister, as they are at the center of providing essential and critical services to our communities across the country. The first delegation is families and parenting programs. Families are the receiving end of poverty and have first-hand experience of the effects of disasters. A case in point are the floods that we recently experienced here in Cape Town, affecting 15,000 people, and I haven't heard a word about the distress that they are having. Yesterday, as a build-up to this budget vote, we distributed food parcel and blankets to some of the flooded areas in Ward 5, farm dwellers of Soetendal in the Drakensberg municipality. These farm dwellers were evicted and are still waiting for formal housing. During the heavy rains in Limpopo, a granny wanted a tent, and I responded with 1 for a church with beds, mattresses, blankets, pillows, a wash basin, and a fire extinguisher. We now have a solar-powered globe belt for the tent. to charge her cell phone. Grannies know all about data. This is a message to all cell phone companies. When an older person gets your SIM card and you know their age, the data must be free and fast. Honourable Chair, we continue to mitigate the effects of poverty on families through various supporting programs like Chomi, YOLO, You Only Live Once. Many of honourable members here actually live twice. Programs. So we continue to mitigate effects of poverty on families through various supporting programs, taking services to the most vulnerable people, a legacy President Mandela wanted to see. This includes interactive dialogues, psychological support, programs guided by the white paper on families. SASSA is at the forefront with the eye crops, to give over-the-counter letters of confirmation of successful applicants, and NDA is there to assist, helping to establish cooperatives. I've attended a dozen eye crops, nearly 5,000 people, and have witnessed that the services provided is appreciated by communities. They come in the morning, and in the afternoon, I am asked to present them with a letter to say that the application has been successful, and they even get a date when they can get their first draw. So CDA are also helping to establish cooperatives, 50 CDAs in Winterveld recently, that's in the Northern Cape, and creating pathways for employment. DSD has taken government services to thousands of people in rural constituencies. As a build-up to this budget vote, DSD visited Vrygrond to witness the excellent work done by the NDA, creating pathways for young people to employment and also to start their own businesses. Chair, you must remember that our freedom was built on the resistance in Vrygrond. That I was very happy that the acting minister found time to join the event in Vrygrond. Alongside this development, the NDA established strategic partnerships with NPOs and empowered communities. Over the years, the NDA partnered with civil society organizations to provide food security, skills development, and creation of job opportunities to support and strengthen families. Let me applaud our seaters for supporting the NDA. Just in 2 months in the new budget year, the NDA can now direct nearly 40 million rand to organizations addressing youth employment. On the radar is a cell phone project, and very soon South Africa will take over this lucrative enterprise. I want to talk about substance abuse and the Central Drug Authority. It's an authority, not a board. Substance abuse, which has affected many families, continues to rob many individuals of the future, and it contributes significantly to, among others, gender-based violence and femicide, crime, and alcohol dropout rates. Alcohol abuse is the main cause of gender-based violence and the reason why we now have a state of disaster. There is no other reason. It's only alcohol abuse. I commend Checkers for withdrawing their application for a liquor license this month in Pilots. This is a contribution by the resale sector to combat gender-based violence. The department's dedicated unit is determined to implement intervention programs against this menace. A scourge that persistently destroys families and communities, especially vulnerable children, youth, women, and older persons, including persons with disabilities. We applaud the Premier of Gauteng, whom I've joined in Tembisa, and on one day, recently at the local sports field, we got 500 beds for young people to get drug rehabilitation treatment. On the 26th of June is the United Nations International World Drug Day. No to drugs and yes to life. We plan to tell up to 2,000 participants to commemorate the event. So the department is very active in addressing matters relating to drug abuse. And this will be the event of the year. Honourable Chair, while I have the delegation for substance abuse, top of mind is to continue supporting a newly appointed Central Drug Authority. We're still waiting for Parliament to submit us the names, and we've written to the Speaker to please fast track it so we can have a Central Drug Authority in operation. But in the meantime, the department and the provinces and even some mayors are doing tremendous work when it comes to matters relating to drugs. So the Central Drug Authority plays oversight and report on all of government's contribution on prevention and treatment services. We will work on giving effect on the recent judgment of the Northwest High Court reminding the country that no liquor outlet must operate within 500 meters of a school, church, or public amenity, and that trading hours must be in terms of national norms in support of a final cabinet policy agreed to 9 years ago. Honorable Chair, we believe that reducing alcohol trading hours reduces alcohol harm and violence against women. I know there's a private member's bill to ban liquor advertising. Well done, fighters. I want to advocate a ban on alcohol trading in 100 of our hotspots, following the example of my own neighborhood in Parliament, which is a dry neighborhood, and where I lived before in Kalkbay. I live in areas which is dry, but I also understand how that will benefit many other suburbs in the country. I'm not saying now that South Africa must be a dry country because that won't be very popular, but we need to have that at top of mind. Honorable Chair, to this effect, an amount of more than 9 million rand is reprioritized from the DSD budget and not new money, and allocated to the CDA for increased operational costs to do their oversight on 21 government departments who have been given a budget to implement their part of a 5-year drug master plan, as well as reporting on the work of every mayor in the country responsible to establish and fund a local drug action committee in their municipality. Mayors have agreed to be in the front line to combat and fight gender-based violence, and we need to get more and more mayors to do so. The CDA submits an annual report to Parliament on the achievements. DSD has a legal obligation to develop a 5-year drug master plan, which is
Thank you, Deputy Minister.
submitted to Cabinet.
Your time has now expired.
Thank you very much.
Is there a speaker on behalf of the ACDP? If not, I recognize the Honorable Nontenja.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. I rise to present the UDM's inputs on Vote 19. The government continues to speak about reducing poverty, empowering communities, and protecting vulnerable citizens. Yet, this report reveals a very different reality. It exposes slow implementation, delayed policies, failing systems, and an increasing dependence on social grants instead of sustainable economic opportunities. Honorable House Chair, besides social policy and integrated service delivery, which has a real increase of 3.15%, and administration with almost 2% real increase, all the other programs of this department are on a decrease in real terms, which amounts to an average of minus 0.94%. This highlights the fact that when budgeting for such a crucial department, it doesn't assist to apply nominal figures instead of real figures. The reality is that most of this department's program allocations decreased, with a negative impact on the most vulnerable citizens. Millions of South Africans still rely on social assistance simply to survive, while unemployment remains critically high. At the same time, communities continue to suffer from gender-based violence, and welfare services face severe funding and staffing shortages. South Africans do not only want survival, they want dignity, opportunity, safety, and a future. South Africa's social crisis is deepening despite repeated government promises. The country's unemployment rate increased to 32.7% in the first quarter of 2026, with more than 8.1 million South Africans unemployed, while youth unemployment continues to rise sharply. Serious weaknesses in government service delivery are exposed through SASSA offices that continue to experience long queues, outdated systems, and administrative inefficiencies despite promises of digital transformation. The UTM call on the department to consider cost of living and inflation when budgeting and use real figures instead of nominal figures. The UTM
Thank you,
support
Honorable.
the budget.
Thank you. Honorable Ghana.
Nakens, I'm Tramashtol. I'll be very relevant today and say good no. Bazoviana Yofan and Bombela, Saturday. Honorable Minister, why is it harder for people to get their grants than it is to gamble? I often tell the story of walking outside the post office during the COVID-19 pandemic and seeing the line of young people waiting for their SRD COVID grant. At the same time, the lines at the betting shops were just as full. And I can promise you, Minister, that it would have been twice as easy to gamble away that grant than it was to obtain it. Convoluted and complex application and verification processes stop many South Africans from accessing the grants that they desperately need. Grants that they could have been used to buy food, pay rent, or even start a business. We recently saw in Everton, Gauteng, how over 1,000 SRD grant recipients came together and pulled their money into a stokvel to start a bakery. A bakery that now not only provides daily bread to the community, but sustains thousands of families. Despite this potential, we still see SASSA losing hundreds of millions to fraudsters and scammers. The solution is clear. Prioritize making grants easily accessible to those who qualify. We have seen it time and time again. Simplifying bureaucratic processes decreases fraud. The less complicated and convoluted steps there are, the less space for fraudsters and scammers to take advantage of the most vulnerable. The simpler it is, the more people can truly benefit without sacrificing their dignity in long queues, only to be turned away time and time again because the system is offline. This desperation also turns even those who do get their grants into gambling. We have heard countless reports of NSFAS and SASSA recipients using what little they have to gamble. Many in the hope that they can make the 370 rands stretch a little bit further, but it really does. The gambling crisis we find ourselves in did not come out of nowhere. It arose from easy access and desperation. Minister, I've addressed your predecessor on many occasions on this issue, urging her to take action. I hope this is another area where your tenure, however long it is, will show better results. I trust that you will act swiftly so that when we return next year, I will not have to ask again, why is it harder for people to get their grants than it is to gamble? Abafana, we are now, Mpombela, Saturday. Ngiyabonga. Nakhenza Mtramashton, once and always.
Thank you. The Honorable Klaase Webster. If not, is there a speaker on behalf of the ATM? The Honorable Mahlatsi.
Thank you, Chairperson. Khotso, Ma-Afrika. The budget vote 19 speaks to the moral core of our constitutional democracy. The mandate of the Department of Social Development, it is not administrative, it is humanitarian. It exists to protect the most vulnerable, the children, older persons, persons with disabilities, and the families trapped in intergenerational poverty. Yet, year after year, we appropriate billions without seeing the corresponding reduction in vulnerability, hunger, and social distress. South Africa has over 18 million grant beneficiaries administered by SASSA. This is not a success statistic. It is an alarm bell. It tells us that our social protection system is expanding while social development outcomes are stagnating. Honorable members, the Auditor General repeatedly flagged with contract management, beneficiary verification failure, and irregular expenditure. When corruption infiltrates social grants, it is not just financial misconduct, it is a theft from the poorest. Equally troubling is the collapse of the NGO funding model. Shelter ECD centers and disability organizational closed because subsidy arrived late or not at all. Yet the NGOs are the department implementing at community level. We must also confront the narrative presented by the Deputy Minister, who speak proudly of food parcels and tents provided to the vulnerable communities. That is emergency relief, not social development. It keeps people alive for a day. It does not change their condition. By construct, the United African Transformation advanced the self-determination, creating conditions where people sustain themselves with dignity. Where governments speak of tents, UAT build houses for the vulnerable. Where government distribute food parcel, UAT promotes livelihood, skills, and community resilience. Social grants must be a safety net, not a permanent destination. The UAT reject budget vote 19 and encourage all South Africans to vote for the UAT on the 4th of November. Kanimambo.
Thank you. The Honorable Ismail Musa.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. In the name of Almighty, the most gracious and the most merciful, I greet all our beloved family of South Africans in the name and prayer of peace. Firstly, let me take the opportunity to acknowledge the sterling and dedicated work of our Honorable Deputy Minister, Hanif Hendricks, the leader of Al-Jama, who remains steadfast and committed to uplifting the lives of the vulnerable within the Department of Social Development. His dedication and sacrifice in serving our people continue to make our country proud. Al-Jama votes and supports Vote 19 on social development. At a time when poverty, unemployment, substance abuse, gender-based violence, and child neglect continue to affect millions of South Africans, social development remains a critical pillar of dignity and hope for our people. We call for greater support for vulnerable communities, improved protection for women, children, the elderly, and persons living with disabilities, as well as stronger oversight to ensure that social grants and essential services reach those most in need. Al-Jama further urges government to strengthen partnerships with community organizations, faith-based institutions, and civil society in restoring the social fabric of our nation. A caring society is not measured by wealth, but how it protects and uplifts its most vulnerable citizens. Honorable Chairperson, we must also acknowledge the growing crisis faced by many young people trapped in cycles of unemployment, hopelessness, gangsterism, and drug abuse. Social development programs must not only provide relief, but also empowerment, skills development, rehabilitation, and pathways towards sustainable livelihoods. The fight against poverty cannot be won by government alone. It requires collective responsibility, ethical leadership, and compassionate governance that places humanity before politics. We must ensure that every child sleeps with dignity, every elderly citizen is treated with respect, and every struggling family feels that government is not abandoned by them. Al-Jama believes that social justice, compassion, and human dignity are values that must guide this department at all times. We further call for improved efficiency in the distribution of grants, stronger support systems for social workers on the ground, and greater accountability to ensure public resources are utilized responsibly and effectively. As leaders entrusted by the people of South Africa, we have a moral duty to restore hope to the forgotten, uplift the downtrodden, and build a nation rooted in unity, care, and justice
Thank you,
for
honourable
all.
member. Time has now expired.
Thank you. Malibongwe.
Is there a speaker on behalf of the NCC, the PAC, Good Party, the Honourable Sharif?
Thank you, House Chair. The Department of Social Development has been plagued by scandal, instability, financial mismanagement, and a serious lack of leadership and direction. A great deal of work is needed to restore this department and ensure that it works for the people of South Africa. We welcome the removal of former Minister Sisisi Tolashe after sustained pressure from the DA. The DA laid its first ethics complaint on 19th October 2025, wrote to the Public Protector on the 2nd of April, wrote to the President on the 8th of April, laid charges on the 23rd of April, laid another ethics complaint on the 27th of April, wrote to the PAC on the 28th of April, and wrote to the President twice in May again. It is a great day for South Africa when political parties, portfolio committee, the media, a special shout out to Rebecca Davis from the Daily Maverick, and whistleblowers come together and work for what is right. This is not a win for an individual. It is a win for the most vulnerable people in South Africa. The Department of Social Development is one of the most critical departments in government because it serves the most vulnerable in our society. Yet, when one examines the department's 26-27 annual performance plan and budget, it is clear that there is a disconnect between budget, priorities, and outcomes. The APP itself reflected poor planning, weak quality control with inconsistencies, poor drafting, and glaring omissions. Unfortunately, it mirrors the current state of the department. The department's budget sits at 302.4 billion, with 284.7 billion transferred to SASSA. Yet, despite these vast resources, many of the department's targets are shockingly weak. For example, Program 1 receives 462.8 million rand, yet key targets include only 4 oversight visits, monitoring in 5 districts, and integrating one entity onto a digital platform. South Africans deserve to ask, how can such enormous budgets justify such limited outcomes? Program 3 raises equally serious concerns, Minister. The basic income support policy process initiated in 2022 is only expected to reach Cabinet now and be gazetted in 28-29, a 7-year timeline for a single policy. We see the same delays with the Children's Amendment Bill. A department responsible for legislation, norms, and standards cannot spend years producing policy while communities wait for intervention. The department's work on gender-based violence and femicide is equally disappointing. Government repeatedly claims that GBV is a national priority, yet this urgency is nowhere to be found in this APPN budget. Acting Minister, you spoke about the GBV Command Center. It's not even in the APP. Only 4 educational sessions on statutory rape and 4 GBV shelters for an entire year is woefully inadequate. We cannot claim to tackle GBVF, take it seriously while investing so little in the fight. The department's ICT systems is outdated, with no meaningful strategy to modernize operations. As SASSA moves towards biometric verification, DSD risks falling even further behind acting DG. Better data systems and tracking mechanisms are essential to protecting vulnerable people. SASSA also remains a major concern, CEO. Verification systems are necessary, but they cannot come at the cost of excluding lawful beneficiaries. Elderly people cannot continue standing in queues from 4 a.m. in the morning, particularly during winter, only to leave without assistance. Honourable members, the Department of Social Development needs urgent reform. The department has the power to restore dignity, protect lives, and create opportunity. But this can only happen through stronger leadership, real accountability, and renewed commitment to service delivery. The acting minister has her work cut out for her. Taking over a department in dire straits will require dedication, courage, and difficult decisions, particularly around disciplinary action stemming from the PSC findings and the forensic report. All of those who are guilty of wrongdoings, including the former minister's special advisor, must be held accountable. This department needs compassionate leadership with a genuine commitment to changing lives. The acting minister and the acting DG, everybody's acting, must work closely to rebuild a department that serves people effectively. And we will work with you, provided they act with integrity and keep the most vulnerable at every single decision that you make. I thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Ramayila.
Modulasetulo a hlomphegang, Tona ya Mojahoswere le Motlatšatona wa Tlhabololo ya Leago, maloko a hlomphegago, bašomi ba Mothaladi wa pele, ma-Afrika Borwa mmogo. I rise on behalf of the African National Congress to support Budget Vote 19 Social Development for the 2026-27 financial year. As the African National Congress, we are saying people first, economic freedom now, and no surrender. The centrality of this budget vote is that the Department of Social Development strives to move beyond protecting the vulnerable, but to empower them to become active participants in building sustainable livelihoods. It enables millions of South Africans to create an enabling environment to chart the future they envisage. But a lot is still demanded to uplift many of our country's citizens. Former President Thabo Mbeki concisely articulated that work that lies on our shoulders when he said, and I quote, "Freedom is incomplete if it does not improve the material conditions of our people," I close quote. These words speak directly to the responsibility before us today, which this budget vote clearly understands the clearing call to eradicate poverty. Through the social policy and integrated service delivery programs, 1.2 billion is allocated over a medium-term expenditure framework to create 283,418 work opportunities in the social sector. Modulasetulo a hlomphegang, vote ye ya tekatekanyetso le mmogo e bohlokwa ga kudu kgahlanong go thuša mekgatlo yeo e thuša mmušo e sa patele jwalo ka di-NGO le di-civil society organizations, particularly children, the elderly, and victims of gender-based violence and femicide. The seriousness of the social challenges is robustly tackled by this budget vote as it makes an increased allocation within a maximum of 4.7% to this regard. In addition, it illustrates a commitment to enhance the registration and appeals process. However, registration without sustainable funding becomes bureaucracy without impact, and delayed transfers to NPOs often translate directly into closed shelters, unemployed social workers, and abandoned communication. Equally important, our focus as a nation must not be narrowly confined to grants, but rather on strengthening the institutions and systems that restore dignity and build lasting opportunity, particularly through non-profit organizations, civil society organizations, social development infrastructure, child protection services, GBVF interventions, and sustainable livelihoods programs. Honorable members and fellow South Africans, a social worker cannot protect a child without a functioning place of safety. A victim of abuse cannot heal without a shelter. Foster care system cannot succeed without capacitated child protection centers. Community development cannot thrive without service points close to the people. We commend the department for allocating 271.5 million over the medium term in the social crime prevention and victim empowerment, precisely because women and children continue to suffer violence inside homes, schools, and communities. The budget vote responds to the victims' plight because it understands that survivors need more than sympathy. They need shelters, psychological support, legal pathways, and economic independence. However, given the scourge of GBV and hundreds of abused children, the amount must be increased to meet the demand. In essence, infrastructure in social development is not a luxury, but it is the foundation of protection and empowerment. President Ramaphosa perfectly directs us on what is to be done when he said, and I quote, empowering women financially gives them greater control over their lives, close quote. The department with various stakeholders must forge ahead with its endeavors to empower women. Honorable Chairperson, equally, the Children's Act gives effect to the constitutional rights of children and places a duty upon the state to ensure their care and protection. Yet, we continue to face foster care backlogs, delayed court processes, and overstretched child protection system. This budget vote resolves some of the structural challenges as it prioritizes finalizing the Children's Amendment Bill and strengthening parenting programs and psychological services with 259.8 billion allocated to children's sub-program over MTF period. This budget vote is critically clear in asserting that our children in foster care are not statistics, but a measure of whether our democracy truly protects the vulnerable. We continue to build sustainable foster care and strengthening adoption services. As the African National Congress postulates that physical service points and satellites, whether using local schools or traditional tribal authorities, facilities must be expanded to bring services to those who might be seized with connectivity challenges. We must leave no qualifying potential beneficiary behind. And we maintain that digital justice is social justice. Some of the opposition parties act as though technology is foreign concept to SASA. They are late for the party. We have actively wiped out over 34,000 fraudulent grants. The ANC is implementing real-world compliance and digital solutions, while some of you in your opposition benches are still writing basic ideas on your flyers. Honorable members, this budget vote must be seen not simply as expenditure, but as an investment in human dignity. The struggle against poverty is not won by income support alone. It is won when people gain the means to stand independently, contribute meaningfully, and live with dignity. And that is true center of economic opportunity. This budget vote's commitment is reverberated by the words of Gandhi, and I quote, "Poverty is the worst form of violence," close quote. As we were committed to fighting oppression, we are more committed to unleashing an unrelenting war against poverty. And I want the people of South Africa to understand that some will come and stand here, speak left, but walk ultra-right. Some will come and stand here, who religiously earn their first salaries every month, but come here not to support the budget, meaning you should not earn the social grants that you deserve. As you meet them out there, ask them who is fooling who. I thank you.
Order, honourable members. To reply to the debate, the Acting Minister of Social Development.
Honorable House Chairperson, let me begin by thanking honorable members for their contributions to this debate. I've listened carefully to the issues raised, the concerns expressed, and proposals made. But of course, I also listened to politics. Allow me to also look forward to working with MECs that are responsible for social development from all 9 provinces. Also, I wish to express my appreciation to former Minister Sisisi Tolashe for the work she has done in stabilizing the department as well as stabilizing its entities. It is indeed, it is true, Honorable Sonkanyeso and Honorable Ramaila, that social grants are a bridge to a brighter future, empowering our people, particularly young ones, to participate actively in the economy. Honorable Mshweni, what you didn't tell us is the fact that with the cash pay-pons, there were so many cash heists that happened in South Africa. Come from Elukwatin, it was known that the money is going to come, there will be criminals, there will be cash heist. So that was the problem about this. But also everybody, the criminals knew that that old woman is having cash in her purse, and therefore they were actually robbing them. That is the problem. They will break into their houses and take money because they will be knowing for sure that there is money. And that is why that system, even if it was benefiting SMMEs, but it wasn't benefiting one SASA, it was not benefiting the beneficiaries, it was also not benefiting the taxpayers. That is the problem about it. But also it is true, Honorable Mankri, it's not true that technology is a barrier. As a matter of fact, we are using both technology, but also SASA offices. So those who cannot use technology, they still go to SASA offices, to kiosk, to apply, and also to check whatever that they want to check. It can actually be done as quickly as all that. What I didn't understand, Honorable Msweni, is whether you are saying we must do away with grants, because we can't, as a matter of fact. We do have problems of unemployment. We have said this repeatedly, young people are unemployed. However, we are saying this is assisting them to be able, honorable member said, some they put together money and they started a bakery. That is what we're looking forward to as our honorable members and as we make these contributions. Coming to Honorable James, I've not seen your message, ma'am, and I do request that you resend it to my WhatsApp. Resend it, please, so that I can check it. I'm more than prepared to look into your message. Other members prepared their speeches last week, and they could not change their speeches to date. So irrelevant in some of the aspects of their speeches, they were still prepared to deliver them as they are. There have been changes now, and you should have changed your speeches, and it would have been as easy as all that. Honorable Notenja, the child support grant does cover all eligible children, including those in the 0 to 2 age cohort. So it does cover them. On the issue of long queues during COVID-19, but of course now COVID-19 is over, and therefore people can still apply. Those who did not apply at that time, maybe because of long queues. So the application is still opened for them. I really want to thank you again, as I have said. I hope to working together with the members, together with the members and everybody that is here. Social grant is to empower people. Let's go out and vote for the African National
Thank
Congress.
you, Honourable
I thank
Minister. Your time has now expired. Order, honourable members. Honourable members, the day is not yet done. You're reminded that at 16:45 today, 2 further budget debates will take place. Vote number 31, Employment and Labour. That debate will take place in this chamber, the Good Hope chamber. Whilst in M46, there's 3 budget budgets that will be debated simultaneously. That is number 28, Police, number 24, the Independent Police Investigative Directorate, and number 21, the Civilian Secretariat for the Police. Your presence at either of those will be highly appreciated. That concludes this debate and the business of this mini plenary. This mini plenary will now rise.
Recording stopped.